there's a gentleman just behind you.
It's me, I guess.
Yeah,
Hi.
and then this gentleman.
Thank you so much for saying what you said. I wish more people would hear it in the local area. I have a question. I'm sure you've given some thoughts on what you see as opportunities of the blockchain technology in connection with the open movement. I'd like to hear your take on that.
Well, I don't know what that means. I guess if I'm gonna, this is one where I'm going to be just really straight, like basically zero. Blockchain is a delusional fad for this side of the movement. I'm not saying blockchain is not an interesting technology. I mean, I'm from a mathematics background. I understand blockchain. I think it will have uses in some areas of fintech and in other areas. But the kind of ideas about like decentralization or like some weird relationship people have to like, I don't know, will allow us to be more democratic in some way, just have zero credibility in my sense. I mean, I'll explain that in a little moment why I'm saying that. And I'm also a bit concerned about the blockchain because I want to get something about this talk, right? Just for a moment, I'll come to the blockchain, but I'll come back. There is a wave of techno-solutionism sweeping our societies. It's represented in many TED Talks, in a lot of the discussion, even about digital technology. It's like we have some social problem. Maybe it's climate change. Maybe it's not enough voting. And we're going to build an app for that. Not enough people voting? I've got an app for that. People not doing enough on their climate emissions? I've got an app for that. Right? And in a deeper sense, we have a techno-solutionism. And the best exemplification of that I can have is some guy, I do hang out a lot with people who do like civic tech and worry about voting. And they're now really activated about like Trump, obviously, and Brexit. And the guy was like, you know, just look at it. I mean, look how much we've innovated in the internet in the last 20 years. We haven't innovated in democracy in the last 2,000 years. Now, for me, the chain of logic went the other way. For him, the chain of logic was, we've got all this tech innovation. Let's just apply it to democracy. And I'm like, no, what that implies is democracy is a hard problem. The problems democracy have, there's no easy solution to from tech. So let me just break it down. What are the problems of democracy or of just collective action? Has anyone here lived in a shared house in their life? Like a house in which it wasn't just them and their partner and their children, but like when they were a student, for example? Yeah, put up your hand if you did that. Was there ever a problem about the washing up? Yeah? Yeah. Now, there are people building apps for that. You know, like, I'll take a picture of the washing up, it was my turn, I've done it now. Now, I'm not joking, they are a little bit useful. I'm not saying they're no use, but they're minimal use, because what's the problem of living in a shared house? It's a collective action problem. It's a coordination problem, right? The basic problems of democracy are like living in a shared house. In fact, they're just two. One is called the collective action problem, which is when we get together in a group to do something, maybe I can just not bother, right? Like, you're going to do the washing up, so I can just shirk off. Or we're going to all put money together to pay for the Ministry of Defense, you know, to pay to have an army so we don't get invaded, but I'm going to shirk all my taxes. Because that way I still get the army, because you're all going to pay, and I don't have to pay for it. Right? That's a classic problem. The other problem is called the principal agent problem, which is that I appoint someone to look after things for me. I'm an investor in a company. That doesn't mean I want to run the company every day, or I'm a citizen in democracy. It does not mean that every day I want to have to think about what are we going to do about pension rights for veterans, or like how are we going to build the sewage system in my city. I want someone who I've kind of hired or voted for to deal with those issues. Just like we appoint managers in a company or we elect officials to represent us. But the problem is that person is not me. So they sometimes go off and do things I don't want them to do. Or they don't perfectly represent me. Now those are just hard problems. And tech makes very little difference to them, unfortunately. They make a little bit of difference. Like I can now much more easily find out what's going on in the Bundestag or like in the parliament, because I can send an email about it or read it online. But you know what doesn't get any cheaper? Actually reading up and understanding what the vote was about, and then making an informed decision about what you want your actual elected official to do, and then writing a sensible letter to them that isn't just a copy and paste of someone else's letter. None of that gets cheaper. Now the only answer you might say is, we'll have AI. One day we'll have an avatar that completely represents my political preferences. And it will just represent me in this, oh, right, okay. Well, at that point, we'll basically have full AI, and a lot of the bets are off at that point, right, about what's going on in society, let's be honest. So, you know, those are just hard problems. And people, I'm just saying, coming back, therefore, to the blockchain, the people who get more excited about the blockchain aren't just like, hey, it will allow us to run stock exchanges with like 0.5% transaction fees rather than 1.5%, you know, or something, right? Which is like, you know, that's a benefit, although when you've looked, transaction fees have come down over the last century a little bit. I'm not sure it's exactly improved the allocation of capital as much as we would have liked. Hint, hint, the recession, right? Yeah? Well, blockchain, people think it's going to solve these hard collective action problems, or these hard, you know, distributed collection. And when you actually look at the blockchain and say, okay, can you explain to me how that's going to work? It disappears in a puff of smoke. There's absolutely no explanation, really, of how that's going to really make any difference. And that's evident in the DAO. This huge blow-up last year of the distributed autonomous organization where some guy hacked it. It was like, there was nothing they were really doing that you couldn't have done in a joint stock company in terms of actual collective decision-making via email, except they were doing it illegally by violating security laws all over the world, by receiving large amounts of money without having proper security laws procedures, by the way. I mean, the DAO, like most of the blockchain crowdfunding, are just completely illegal, right? They take money from uninformed investors for incredibly speculative projects that sometimes look like Ponzi schemes. Right? I mean, like, just don't get me started there. And the point about it is, what worries me, to go back to the story, my story today is about political action to create new rules. It isn't a tech story. Tech is the driver of a world of costlessly copying. But the way that works out, the way that the wealth we create gets divided, the way that innovation can happen, depends on us getting together politically and creating new rules of the game. There's no tech part in it, really. The only tech part is like, hey, we can trace where money goes a bit more easily now. Like, I can work out how much Madonna gets played more easily than in the past. And so what worries me about the blockchain is its classic techno-solutionism, where it diverts the energy of this activist community or non-activist community into techno-solutionist pipe dreams because we're lazy, right? Like, we're just like, oh, yeah, like, democracy's hard. Maybe someone will come up with an app for that, you know? And I'm lazy. Like, we all are, I get it. But it's like, that's what concerns me about the blockchain, is it represents this tendency to think that we've got some technological solution to these social problems. But the answer is political about these rules of the game and how we build them really here. It's the rules we create that shape how the technology is used. And also, there's one fundamental big change that has happened. It's costless copying. That is the fundamental, huge change. If you go away from here tonight with one idea, it's that is a revolution.